Hi, podcast friends. Would you like to help all the answers become very, very deeply, profoundly popular? You can do two very simple things for us today to make us incredibly fancy in the eyes of the world. Would you go to where you listen to us and just click on 5 stars? Give us a 5-star review, and you're going to make us very, very popular. Apparently, people who can support our podcast by giving us ads and such can't do so or won't do so until they see that we have like 50 bazillion 5-star reviews. So go to your local place that you're listening to our podcast and give us 5 stars. You don't even have to write words with your brain and hands. You just click the 5 stars. How easy is that? Also, check out patreon.com and search All the Answers podcast. And there you can donate funds in small chunks that then will make you famous on the podcast. We have 3 different tiers of support. You can either get a shout out on the podcast regularly. You can come on the podcast. You can ask a question where you won't have to be on the podcast, but your question gets answered on live air on the podcast, or various other gifts that we will give you for donating to us and helping us keep bringing you fantastic, sassy, irreverent, spiritually aware content. We love you. Patreon.com, All the Answers podcast. And please give us that 5-star review today. It'll take you 36 seconds. We love you. Hello, friends of the podcast. How are you doing? How's it going for you? I hope all is well and shiny and bright and deeply surrendered and aligned and in flow. Just a small request and desire I have for your soul. Hey, listen, if you're interested in getting some really deep activation, spiritual healing, and alignment for yourself, getting clarity on your own spiritual path, and or clearing or healing anything you need cleared or healed from your body, being, soul, or spirit, join me for 3 days of star being and Christ-light healing, October 1, 2, and 3 in upstate Massachusetts, or you can join online. It's a 3-day retreat where we're gonna zap a ton of crap right on out of your system and align you with the light in a really powerful way. October 1, 2, and 3. For details, give me a little email and I will email you back with everything you need. KLRubin, RUBIN, @gmail.com. That's K as in kiss, L as in love, RUBIN, @gmail.com. Additionally, consider joining us for 2 weeks in Egypt, November 15th to the 26th. 2 weeks in Egypt, friends. We're going to go to the temples. We're going to go to the pyramids. We're going to go to the Sphinx. And we're going to be raising the vibrational field of the planet to lift the weight of the recent trauma that we've all been going through for the past year or 2, from the planet itself, from the collective, and from our own hearts. So this will be a ton of healing, and also like rad travels on the Nile and an integration time for 2 days at a beach at the end in Egypt. Have you always wanted to go to Egypt? Well, you should go. Now's the time. Email me, klrubin @gmail.com. That's K as in kiss, L as in love, RUBIN @gmail.com. And for now, enjoy the cast of Pod.
Welcome to that spiritual, actual, factual answers to questions you're asking. You find them inside you, reciting the records. Akashic, we laughing, we drafting the passion through various. Time for that comedy, dramedy, all of the fanciest, catchiest acronyms. Listeners, listen, we traveling. Consciousness always unraveling. The reading you're having is mapping you back to your natural habitat. Abracadabra, it's magic, let's bask in it. To top it off, the host, all the classiest. Now, what were you asking for? All of the answers, what? All the answers.
Good morning. It's so early. For the listener, we are adding an addendum a couple days later to our last taping, which you won't even notice because it'll be taped together so seamlessly by Desmond McNeese that you're going to think it's just all happening in one moment, except that I'm saying all these words right now.
We were interrupted by a very loud fire alarm that was incessant and would not go away.
Yeah, I'm hoping...
In a building. It wasn't just like a smoke alarm in a kitchen.
No, yeah. I'm hoping Desmond can keep a little bit of that in so that they're like, what's that beeping? And then they hear us talking about it, and then here we are.
Yep, and then it'll be it. So, yeah. Can I do one thing, though? I am excited
Yeah.
about one thing that's happening today, and then we'll jump right in. It's not a story. It's actually, I want to talk about someone else's work for just 1 second, and that is that one of our fucking favorite guests, Melina Lee Williams Haas, that's her whole name, who was in episode like 29, maybe, Don't Ring Out Your Kinks. Great, amazing episode. Has her podcast launching today, and she is one of the most phenomenal storytellers you've ever met. And it is called All That and Mo.
Yes, it is.
M-O. And it's on all kinds of things. I am so excited to listen. I'm like giggly about hearing this podcast. So go check that thing out, man. It's going to be awesome.
All That and Mo.
Yeah. Wherever podcasts are found.
Blah, 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 blah.
Done. I said my thing.
You are the host now.
You are the host now.
Some kind of like video game masculine energy, like uber mask, like you are a host now. But also it's apparently Arnold at the same time.
It's always Arnold. I feel like it's the reference we have for like just macho voice.
Well,
welcome to our possibly slightly shortened episode today. We'll see how it goes.
We'll find out.
Find
Cassidy
out.
has been having to navigate and being very patient and generous with my post-vaccination, post-hives epidemic up and down of my state of wellness.
Yeah. Katie sent me pictures. You sent me pictures. You're you. I'm going to talk to you in the first person or whatever it is directly rather than narrating you as a third person. You sent me pictures and those were horrifying. Not that you are horrifying, but just like your skin was covered in hives.
Yeah, it was literally the bottom of my chin to my toes.
Wow.
In those big red welts. And you saw them, they were hideous.
That was nightmarish.
And the hideousness is not even the problem. The problem is how they fucking felt, which I would like to say to all listeners now who get hives regularly, I have a deep empathy for you now. Real understanding of, I think I thought hives were like kind of annoying and a little itchy-ish. This was like constant searing, itching pain combined with like inside my body hurt the whole time.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking like, okay, it's just itching. I can like do stuff. Nope. I had to like lay perfectly still in a very cold room. Because if it was hot at all, or I had clothes on or a blanket on my body, the itching would get worse. Then I would scratch. Then the scratching was worse. Then the hives would get worse. Anyway, that passed. And then I thought, I'm good. We're going to tape the podcast today. Everything's fine. And like yesterday was kind of fine. But there are these pockets in my days right now that I hit where all of a sudden I cannot sit upright. I have to be laying down. We talked about this last time. It's crazy. And I really do think that what happened to me was with the hives was that my system is doing its like, we're dealing with a vaccine thing. And so it's
my immune system's on overdrive.
Yeah. And so I think I probably would have had like a little bit of itching from something, from the acai berries I had. But because my system was on crazy mode, it went crazy.
I'm so sorry that you're going through that.
Thank you.
It's frustrating. But we're like, wait, we have an hour where I feel good. Let's quick tape the podcast.
That's the thing.
We care about our listeners.
We care about you guys. Well, you were like doing life. You were like, well, I'm at a job, but did it just end or something?
Yeah, it finished and I'm set up in the work was in the same location as my recording studio. So,
well, that's fantastic. Interestingly, I thought of you, and this is good for the listeners. This is a cool, maybe potential topic, which is that with these symptoms, when they come on, what's been happening, which is like a very odd, sorry, dog having to get cozy. Gotta let her get cozy. Very odd set of symptoms is like, it feels like the inside of my body is getting beat up by like a professional boxer's inside my body, hitting all my organs and my skin from the inside.
That sounds awesome. Like we should all have this. This sounds amazing.
Sexy good time.
Sounds like, yeah, this is somebody's kink and I don't want to shame it.
That's a good point. It's such that like I have no hand strength. Like my hands can't close. Like I just can't grip a Coke bottle. And then my whole body feels weak and beat up. Point being, yesterday I had that all day long, but weirdly I was like, I'm doing my healing sessions. I am seeing my clients today. I can't stomach canceling another session. And I didn't feel fevery. So I was like, I'll just be weak and do these. And so I did. And by the third one, I was like, I cannot. This is really hard. But the first two were actually the light coming through for the client was helping me too. So that was good.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The third one, it was like very draining. And then today, when we were talking, you and I, you were like, well, what if we just did a short one? And it was like, we just go in my records because I have a question about a thing. And my whole body started to shut down at the very idea of that.
At the very thought of it.
It was just like, oh my God, I can't. Oh my God. Panic ensued. It was weird. But so I laid down and I rested. Cut to 3 hours later, I had a client. Her session totally helped me. Like helping her helped me, which usually is the case, but wasn't at 1:30. And then after her, I was like, oh, well, I'm fine now. Let's get into Cassidy's records. So it's like, I'm really tripped out by the uppy downiness of these symptoms, this weirdness. It's so up down.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say about it, except what I was talking about right there was just the fact of like how interesting it is. The records. I mean, you and I were talking about how like, you were like, what if we just do this? And I was like, the records is the hardest part. I can't just like whip into the records, except catch me when I'm well. And I sure can.
Right. And then when you're there, you get more well sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah, most of the time. I think too, this particular client was kind of perfect for me for today because she's such a vast energetic field herself. She's such a spiritual person and she's like a theta practitioner and like just like a wizard of all things light work that it was really easy to be with her energy because her energy itself was uplifting to me.
Nice.
The guides had like really, really difficult, straight, direct talking with her today. That was rough for her, I think, which always makes me feel a little bit bad when they're like, hey, stop this. Don't talk about that. Just do this. Focus on this. That's bullshit. You're full of shit here. This is the truth. Go. And I was like, by the way, I'm really sorry that I'm talking to you so directly, but like, this is how it's coming through. I feel they're very clear. Anyway, it's just I'm much more codependent than the light of God is. The light is like, deal with me. And I'm like, I don't know. Can they deal with it? I don't know.
It's so funny just to think about the human vessel that you are. Like I was just listening to last week's episode actually, and there was some talk about like how in a sense you're more and more in the space of like, I don't actually know anything either, by the way, just so you know. It's the stuff that's coming through that knows the things. I know a few things, but I'm not an expert. But then also you are like, you have a lot of like.
But I kind of am. I know.
Firsthand. Not quite. We won't call it therapeutic because that might sound like you trained in psychotherapy, but it is. It's like spiritually therapeutic knowledge.
No, but I did get, I mean, I have the equivalent of, 3 healing schools is not a small amount of training.
Right.
And also like my life, like my human design thing is it's called the 6-2, the hermit role model, where my whole life is set up to be the first third of my life is torment, trial and error.
Check.
The second third is integrating all that. And the third is being the role model, like the teacher, the role model, the leader. That's just my life.
So you're gearing up towards that one.
Yeah.
Not sure you're like 60, but still.
No, 50.
50. All right.
Yeah. So it's not that far.
Ready to be that just pretty much therapist.
But it's also just like, that's what I am. 6-2 is my profile. And that's just who you are. Leader, hermit, role model. That's just what is. You know, what's trippy about that? Speaking of that, I had 2 people this week who I haven't talked to in a long time. One old friend of mine and one client I haven't seen in a long time messaged me after some video I posted and said like, you are my role model. And I went, that is miraculous because I do not feel like a role model, A. B, my human design says when you're functioning correctly as yourself, you will be the role model. And I'm like, and this has been true my whole life. I always feel like I'm just like a person trying to grow and I'm complicated and messy and weird. And I've learned a lot of wisdom tools and teachings because I've had to from a desperate need to heal. So it doesn't feel very like sexy or ego at all. It feels just like, oh, yeah, well, okay, sure. If that's,
yeah.
But what trips me out is literally those that came out of those 2 people's mouths. And that is my profile in human design. That's how fucking magical human design is. It's so on you see, you have to get a little deeper into it, and then you'll be blown away by as much as I am. Right now, you're like, yeah,
Someday.
sure, that's kind of
Yeah, whatever, Katie.
yeah. No,
Okay.
it's
No,
yeah.
I think I would do well to go deeper into the actual structural stuff of mine. Like I think we figured out what I was in the broad sense, but like the more of the like narrower.
Yeah, it's very mind blowing. Any hoozle, one of the more mind blowing parts of it to me is like to finish that thought is that things that you think are little problems you have, or something you wouldn't even think to mention to someone, or a way that you think privately that never even gets brought up, is written down in words in your chart. You can't believe the specificity with which this stuff already knows you. Like, it'll say things like, you're entering so specific, it freaks me out. Like, you're going to be more comfortable with pets than going on dates for the next 6 months. Like, that's a whole other topic of where that information's coming from. But the point is, that's how specific it is.
Huh.
Or it'll be like in the third quadrant of the third part of your third section of your life, which is like a 3-month period, you'll be tired a lot. And you're like, how can it no? But there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what's going on. But also, you'll only be tired from noon to 3. That's how specific it is. It's fucking insane. I'm going to calm down so I don't lose all my energy in the first minute here that we're doing this. Yeah, keep together. So why don't we get in your records? You had a thing you wanted to look at.
Yeah. Do you want to, let me tell the framework of it before we, maybe? Or should we get into the record?
If you want.
Yeah, it's kind of a story that leads to a question.
Ooh.
I'll just lay it out, and then let's do it before we.
Let's get in the records.
Okay, and then I'll talk.
Yeah, because I want to be in there while I'm listening.
Great. So they're listening too.
So this is exciting. A story followed by a question. I like it. By the way, for the listener, tell them what kind of gig you were doing today. I think your life is fun and interesting for people.
Oh, yeah. So the main thing that's kept me, in rice and beans for the last year and a half has been working with this organization called Feet First, which is like games and stuff. And I will actually talk a little smack today because it was fun. We were leading an amazing race where we have like these map challenges, and
to be clear, sorry, when Cassidy says games and stuff, he means like Feed First goes into like corporations and
corporate team building is what
team building, yeah. And so they do fun, crazy games for adults.
We do treasure hunts and carnival games and whatever, but we do a lot of virtual stuff. And boy, it is sometimes I am shocked at how people who are really high up in some type of organization are fully incompetent in certain ways of interacting with things.
Isn't that interesting?
I'm like, okay, you just click there and you click there, and that's the information, and you have it, and I've given it to you, and you experienced it, and you did it, and it worked. Great. Next time that same person comes back in the main room from the breakout room and says like, okay, I have the thing and here's the thing. And I go, great. And I'm going to give you a link and take it back to your room. How do I do that? Okay. So we did that just 3 minutes ago with you. I held your hand through that process and you did it and you said, great. And then you went back and now you're back and I gave you just a new thing, but it's the same thing and you can't repeat that.
I think we need to understand specifically what you're saying. This is too abstract.
It's too abstract. So we drop links into the chat. And then they take those links back to their breakout room and share them with their team.
Okay.
And then they follow those links to like a Google Map challenge or some sort of to the next challenge in their event.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they have to, click on it and then it opens a browser tab and then they do the thing, whatever the thing is.
Okay.
And then they solve a question and they come back to the main room with like a code word.
Okay.
From solving the thing. And they tell us that and we go, great, here's your next challenge. We drop a new link in the chat.
Uh-huh.
And then they jump back to their breakout room. They just have to copy and paste it back into the chat for everybody.
I have a theory about this, about why they're terrible at it.
Why?
I want to be, just for funsies, I want to devil's advocate for them.
Oh, they deserve it because it's just a particular way of thinking. Yeah, go ahead.
Well,
though.
But also I think this is what happens because I've noticed this a lot I happen to have done this job with Cassidy in the past. I worked for Feet First for a minute too. But also I'm also a human who's played games.
Yeah.
I think you get into a certain, and I would wonder if you get into a certain part of your brain when you're playing a game that's like, okay, we're going to problem solve like this and you're going to do, it's kind of like an amped up state of being, excuse me, where you're like in a hurry and trying to win.
Yeah, and you don't retain anything as a result
Yeah,
of that.
well, also it's almost like you come if I'm like, okay, we're gonna win, hold on, let me find out, and I go, Cassidy, here, we have a thing. Okay, ready? We're still ready to win over here. Well, how do I do that thing? My brain is on adrenaline and win. My brain isn't on like links and things. So I'm not like in that part of my head.
Yeah.
And maybe for you, I think for you, this would be my guess. You tell me what's off. You have a brain that can orient to those things kind of organically anyway.
Absolutely.
Such that for you, switching in and out of those two modes is like, they don't even have to be two modes. It's like one aspect of one mode.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think not everybody is that way.
Yeah. And I witnessed that happening repeatedly. And it is interesting though, when it's like
a tech CEO.
Boy, I'm trying to figure out, because I can't give away any real secrets, but like there was a company they're in charge of some really important things for the IT of some very important parts of all of our lives.
Oh, I know what you're saying.
And that company, I hope these people were in some other department that had nothing to do with the actual IT.
Yeah.
Because their inability to like think in a very simple IT way, which is like,
funny. Here's
a link, follow it, follow this direction, work together, achieve this goal, return.
Right. Couldn't do it.
Couldn't navigate from a breakout room to the main room and back to a breakout room.
Okay, now this speaks to your original point. I just wanted to make that other point, but I think your original point is really fun too. That the thing of where the way I'd frame it is like, when I've done feet first gigs and they're like outdoors, like you're on Angel Island, right? And you've got like a team of like high-end data scientists, and they're like very intelligent, and they can't figure out how to like keep the bandana on their wrist.
Right.
Or like,
but at least that's like a separate framework.
Right.
What's disturbing is when there's people in charge of things that are important.
Can't do tech.
I'm like, oh, now we've got a problem.
But don't you find it kind of extra? What I love is when you were talking about your first thing is like the hilariousness of like alpha bro CEO tech startup guy who's like, wait, how do we drink the beer and throw the frisbee? And you're like, you just fucking do. It's not that hard. Yeah. Like you can start this company and think you're like dude of the century, but you can't like tie a shoelace while running.
Yeah. And then
nobody can do that.
And it's interesting because I think there's also something about just company culture, because like an entire organization or, a team of 70 people or whatever, a group of that is divided into 6 teams.
Yeah.
We'll have one company where everybody pretty much who's there can handle it. And they're good and they're like on it and they're tight and they're sharp. And an entire other company that might even be in the same field. They can't communicate with each other. Thing one. They don't understand. They don't listen to instructions. So there is something, I think, about a whole framework that occurs, like the energy with which they walk into the room.
That's fair enough.
And that is sometimes like an entire, like the ethos of a company culture, how they operate can be like very siloed and not conversational. And they're trying to do an event like this to get better at that, but they're so broken that they can't do it.
That also reminds me of like how listening in general, like I think you and I or people like us who do acty improv-y things, like listening is such a big part of our training. Like you get trained, there's 8 different exercises and games you do in acting school just to learn how to be present. Yeah. And listen to your partner. And
listen to the instructions.
Yeah. Or listen to any words being said at you. Yeah. And then I feel like whenever I go in through ACT to do these trainings with groups, it's always like really getting people to understand what listening is a real new skill. They don't know how to fucking listen.
Yeah, 100%.
And that makes me worried for the world.
Yeah, that's when I get...
Like the world is full of those people.
Yeah. And let me be clear, like I only comment on the remarkably challenging ones. Like I actually have a lot of awesome experiences, with a company that'll come in. I'll be like, oh God, it's a bunch of lawyers or whatever. Or it's a bunch of something that I have a bias against.
Yeah.
they're going to be difficult or they're going to be super broy, and they will blow my mind with how like
That's cool.
joyful and connected and listening they are. And I'll be like, okay.
You know what my group is that I judge immediately and then am like, stop judging. Engineers.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm like, oh, they already know everything. They're at ones and zeros. It's either yes or no. It's either right or wrong.
Right.
There's no nuance. And they don't fucking listen.
Yeah.
And that's my prejudice against them.
Yeah.
So that when they
And-
blow my mind, I'm always so grateful.
Totally. That's the, and I have to remind myself often that I like, okay, let go of your preconception. Or
Totally.
I'm shocked when the engineers can't follow directions because I'm like, these are A plus B plus C, slot
People.
A, tab B things. And
Right.
that should be, but you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or when insurance people are like super competent and know how to like navigate on their computer super well. I'm like, okay,
All
I
right.
was wrong.
I have judged you incorrectly. There's so much like lately that I've been doing this, like, I think I'm noticing that I'm doing a better job, or I should say I'm more willing lately to admit my own hideousness. Like, I feel like I'm feeling safer and safer in my life to go, here's the ways the humanity of me fails all day, every day. Like, here's how I'm just a fucking asshole. Because I think it's like, for so long, I thought, I was just trying to get perfect for so long. And like all the healing work, it's like in part, it was like motivated by this need to fix myself to be perfect. Because in my childhood, the belief that got cemented in was like, once I got perfect, maybe mom and dad would love me. Right. Or they would like listen or treat me well, or you know what I'm saying? Like that was the world I was in. And so it's amazing to see how long it's taken for that to really start to fall apart enough inside my system that I can go, oh yeah, I was an arrogant fuckwad today. And like, oh, I was super impatient with that lady. Rather than like covering up the ways that I can be that way. And then like there's being that way unconsciously. There's being that way consciously, and then there's trying to change, right? There are 3 different stages of transformation. And I think that because I've changed so much, there's been a way that I've been like, I don't even want to own any of the shittiness because I'm so afraid of going back to just being shitty. And lately, I've realized, you can own your first thought wrong disease. Like my first thought is regularly wrong.
Uh-huh.
And I can own that. Like I have tools and spirituality and consciousness teachings and la-da-dee-doo-da-dee-da to navigate it and to become a better person. But that doesn't mean I have to like never have a shitty thought and be fucking perfect. You know?
Well, yeah. And in fact, there's probably a sense of like disidentification that goes on. Like in your early stages when you're traumatized, you can't admit to any of the failures because then that would be saying I am what they say I am, or I am what I think I am.
Yeah.
So I can't even see it. If I see it, it will mean that's
Too
true
devastating.
and it's too devastating.
Yeah.
But if you get to a point where you're aware of, I'm perfect. Wait, what is it? I'm whole, perfect, and
Complete.
Right as I right now, just as I am.
Yeah.
And also I have all these shitty things that I can notice.
Yeah.
But the core of you is still completely intact. Those then become behaviors or
That's right.
things that happen.
That's right.
That you can then look at and go, yeah, that's the thing I don't want to do.
I think that's the point, is that what I've been healing this whole time was the core, because the core was not okay. And now the core feels good and whole and stuff. And I go, wow, I can still be a shitty behaving thing on top of the core.
Right.
So because the core is stable, I can go like, oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Here's me being it's not such a big fucking deal.
Well, yeah, I think that speaks to like the difference between when someone calls you on something and all the defense mechanisms come up. Fuck you, you're a racist, not me, or whatever. Instead of if someone tells you, corrects you or gives you a correction on something,
yeah,
and you can just go, oh yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that was shitty.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's because you're aware that shitty is shitty and I am whole, perfect, and complete. And I can be shitty and I can notice it and I can improve it without that having to be like, I don't have to take that on as my core identity.
Well, okay, and I guess I would say, I mean, that shit gets triggered in me regularly where I go, fuck you to someone giving me feedback or whatever. I don't say it out loud, but that's how I feel. And then I sit with it and I realize, okay, because I do the whole thing of asking myself, what's the fear under here? I never get defensive if there isn't a fear.
Mm-hmm.
And if some part of me isn't threatened. So once I can see like, oh, I'm afraid that they think I'm stupid. That one comes up a lot for me, which I've realized that it has a lot to do with like the way my dad talked to me when I was a kid. There was a lot of like eye rolly, you should already know this kind of stuff. And my mother was that way too in a very different way. So I built this like deep seated thing of like, I am very smart. And do not talk to me like I don't understand. Like I'm real defensive about it.
Yeah.
So much so that I'll project onto people that they're saying I'm stupid when they're so far from saying I'm stupid. So far, that is not being stated in any way. But it takes me a minute. I have to let the cortisol of the defense die down, and then I go, oh, you know what? I was hearing you say I'm an idiot when really you were saying here's the microphone. You were just saying like turn that knob.
Right. You're like, I know what a microphone is. You think I'm stupid.
Yeah. What? Fuck you. I don't want to. And it's like, okay, hold on. This person is not like attacking your very core self.
Yeah.
And this is my point. Even when you have a solid core, you can still get triggered by shit.
Sure. But yeah. And you just said it though, the extra steps of being able to reflect on it later.
Yeah.
Instead of writing an essay about how cancel culture is bullshit or something instead. Which is, I think, what.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about cancel culture?
It's bullshit. I think the concept, the framework of what people call cancel culture is horseshit.
What does that mean?
There is meaning, people, we're being told we can't say anything or we'll be taken off the air. And then they spend an hour-long news segment discussing that.
Mm.
You're like, you're on the air discussing it right now, you dumbasses.
So you're saying what you would want them to do instead would be
not be dicks.
Oh, I see.
It's the argument would be like, no, it's consequence culture, not, or it's critique culture, not cancel culture. You might someone might get canceled as in enough of us say, you know what, we're not going to listen to you anymore. And then that person is no longer popular.
Yeah, but and
now they're not selling their fucking theaters out.
Okay. That's one thing that happens. But there is another thing that happens where someone says something and it's taken out of context and then they are canceled socially. And
give me an example.
There's many.
That's a framed up example, though, that I'm just going to say, very rarely is anybody, quote, canceled, because canceled means they vanished from the earth.
Well, it doesn't mean they vanished from the earth.
Or
it means
from popular culture.
Right. Or they're no longer like listened to or hired for jobs or.
Right. But I mean, also people say shitty things that aren't out of context all the time and continue to get
for sure.
To get jobs.
Both things are
true.
So
it's not that there is a cancel culture, because that's the framework that says, oh, now that people are actually speaking up against certain behaviors more consistently than we ever have in the past, and there's enough of a support system for those people to be heard, and that as a result of that, some people are losing their access to be as shitty as they've been for a really long time. There must be a new thing called cancel culture.
Yeah, but I don't know, Cass. I have to say, I think what you're saying has truth in it, in that does occur. All of that is true, that we need to be speaking up, and we are speaking up in ways now against things that just used to get to exist. And now we're not. I think that's all true. But there is a way that there's a kind of pendulum swing that's so far in that direction that people are getting the threat. In other words, at some point, there has to be a point where people can communicate with one another and not feel threatened, that their whole livelihood is threatened. Now, I'm not talking about Fox News. Okay. I'm not referring to like Fox News.
I mean,
I'm talking about like, couldn't there be a moment where like someone says to a white man in power, like, hey, when you talk that way, if it's actually technically quite racist and here's how, rather than being like, don't listen to him, he's a racist, or don't listen to him, he did this to women, or don't listen to, I'm like, wow, we need to at some point like educate each other and hear each other rather than
I agree, but I think there's so very actual few examples of what you're describing actually happening. What's mostly happening is, I wish this person wouldn't say this shit, and here's all the reasons it's shitty.
Huh.
And that's it. Very few people are going, like, no one has who has the power to actually shut anyone down completely?
I think a fair amount of people. Like when I think about Hollywood, for example, if you're an actor in Hollywood and you say something wrong right now, there's
I
such
need a concrete example because.
Well, I'm going to give you a theoretical one because I don't have a concrete one. And then I can do some research for you between
this
now
is my
and...
problem. This is what happens, though, is every time.
Can I just finish the thought,
Okay,
though?
say
I
it.
haven't said the thing.
Okay.
I understand, though, what you want. You want that makes sense to want a concrete example. Yeah. I'll try to find one for you next time. I don't have one right now, but I know they're there, I think. I'll try. I might be wrong. My point being,
Kevin Spacey got canceled because he raped boys.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd say that's a cancelable offense.
I'd say that's part of the, but I'd say that's part of the Me Too movement. That's not cancel culture.
Great. Okay. Say your theoretical statement.
Cancel culture is not about if you're a rapist, you should get called out on it. That's fucking justice. That's correctness. Cancel culture is you say a thing, it's taken out of context, and you're not, people fully decide a new thing about you without you getting to have a say in like, wait. That's, or even, I would even go so far as to say, you say something shitty that isn't great. Now you're judged for that one statement, and you don't have a space in the culture to come back and say, you know what, that was shitty. And I'm learning in real time, and I learned from this, and you guys are right. And I'm going to correct the behavior in the following way. I'm going to make up for it and do some work on that. I don't know. We can't have people feeling like there's no room.
I mean, I can give examples of when that has happened.
To be human.
Yeah. So I actually don't think that what you're saying is actually a major part of popular culture now, that people are not given space. People are given space and then they fuck up the space.
Uh-huh.
You know, Louis C.K.
But they shouldn't be canceled if they fuck up the space.
If I tell you, please don't punch me in the face.
Yeah.
And you apologize. You know what? I'm never going to punch you in the face again. And then you punch me in the face again.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to cancel you. I'm going to say, you know what? Then we're not friends anymore. And that's me canceling our friendship.
But that's different from you can't work or earn a living anymore.
Yeah, it is. I mean, okay. So I would like an example again, like Louis.
Can I just also, I haven't finished the point is this. It's like, there are certain behaviors can't listen to Louis C.K. anymore. I can't even think about it or listen because it was such a bummer to learn about that whole thing. I'm not sure that's cancel culture. Is it?
No. Then what is cancel culture? That's the thing. I need an example of my whole problem is it's sort of like saying PC. It's a framework that was created to name a thing that doesn't actually exist.
I think that sentence is taking it a little too far, but I hear your point, which is...
Or that barely exists. That there are exceptions to a rule that are occasionally someone, oh, that sucks that one person got taken out of... But then, you know, a whole, I'm going to say Fox News or other places will continue to headline things with, let's talk about cancel culture, as though that actually even exists. That there's a culture, it's like saying Antifa, you know, it's like, it's not... There isn't actually a thing that is cancel culture.
Except that we have defined it as a thing.
We've defined it as something that we need to deal with as though it's happening.
It is happening.
We've created again, to whom?
Yeah, I have already told you I'm going to have to get you an example. I have nothing more to say to that pushback.
But I think that...
But that's not exactly. That doesn't prove your point. I mean, that's me having a bad brain. I can give you examples
of people that say they're victims of cancel culture.
You're winning right now.
No, I
just
don't
have the... But I don't have it. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I don't have it in my brain right now. But
right. I agree. We can come back to it. But the point being, that right there is that's the bugbear of the sort of straw man that exists in the dialogue, that we have this thing called cancel culture that is ruining lives. And if we actually go and say, okay, which lives? And then we go, Louis C.K. And then we go, That's not cancel culture.
I understand. I am not confused about your. I'm not confused about your argument. Everything you're saying is not confusing. Your argument makes total sense. So you don't have to say it again because I understand the logic of it. I'm trying to say that I think that's a little too overstated. There is something going on, and I don't think it's just Fox News promoting an idea that doesn't exist at all. I'm Googling this while we're talking to try to see if I can. Like, what about the J.K. Rowling thing? Do you know about that?
A, she has not lost a penny.
Okay.
B, she's still getting to do all the things she wants to do. C, a lot of people are fucking pissed off at her because she's a piece of shit.
Really?
Saying shitty things repeatedly saying shitty things.
Yeah.
She's,
Oh, she's transphobic, huh?
She's hella transphobic, and she continues to double down on it.
I'm just looking at it right now.
So.
Wow.
And also she hasn't been canceled.
I see.
She has been called out, and a lot of us are saying, hey, you know what? Fuck you. We don't want to deal with you anymore.
Okay.
That's what a boycott is also. A boycott could be considered cancel culture, or it's enough people saying, well, we don't want to take part in your bullshit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm just reading this thing right here. These are good questions. Is cancel culture an important tool of social justice or a new form of merciless mob intimidation?
Right.
If canceling someone usually doesn't have much measurable effect, does cancel culture even exist?
Yeah.
This is to your point. Or does the very idea of being canceled work to deter potentially bad behavior? What do you think about that?
It's hard to say whether it can deter anything because people are going to be shitty and people are going to be shitty, but it might quiet people down from it might quiet people down from being as out loud about their shittiness.
I do want to, I understand what you're saying. That makes sense. I do want to say this. I'm not pro, please, nobody misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not pro people being dicks and getting away with it. Like, I'm not. I'm loving a lot. This whole awakening our culture is going through where, fucking Louis C.K. jerks off in front of a bunch of ladies and has to be fucking held accountable. I'm a fan. I'm a big supporty fan. I just think that there's a way that anytime anything changes in the world, this isn't about race or about women or about anything in particular, but any shift in consciousness that people go through, there's always this way that we go really far one direction to compensate for the really farness that we've been in the other direction. And I think there's a way that it would be good for all of us to be a little more measured about all of it. I want to speak specifically. I'll give you an example. This is not about cancel culture, but kinda. Sorry. But not. It's not about canceling. Let's talk about, okay, let me see. Let me think about how to frame this. Well, I'm going to pause there. What do you think about what I've said already? The idea that the pendulum is so far one way, where like women can't speak up about a dude jerking off in front of them, and Black people are fully marginalized in a systemic way that we're not even talking about. So then we swing way to the other degree where it's like we're up in arms every millisecond about everything in a way that is a little intense. Should it? Yeah. Maybe it needs to be that intense.
I mean, that would be my argument in some ways because, I don't want to get into like the gradations of like tone policing where it's like, oh, you should be less angry and say it more kindly so that racist can hear the message. Yeah, ultimately that would be great.
Well, right. And that's like that white fragility thing. White fragility, right?
Yeah. Who am I to tell you how angry you should be at centuries of awfulness?
Yep.
And also I think there is something to be said for having to go, like I would say the concept of the framework of defund the police.
Yeah.
This is a good example. Sounds so extreme to people.
Yeah.
That then there's been a lot of argument, like they need to say it differently so people will agree to it. They need to say reallocate resources.
Yeah.
Guess what? We never had this conversation before people started saying defund the police. No movement was occurring until we dragged the line.
Yeah, but you think the name...
Absolutely.
But you think the name of it did that?
Yeah, because
because it scared people.
Enough juice got pulled to over here.
Yeah.
And now we can talk about this place on that conversation. But literally, it does require a certain amount of like shock and awe to get people to like go, oh, wait, you're talking about taking the police away completely? What? Whereas when we're like, can we please reform? Would it be better if we could do a little better?
Mm-hmm.
And then
Nothing.
No, nothing ever happened.
Interesting.
So we say defund and we get a little bit of reform.
Yeah. Yeah.
My armchair theory.
Except that now, wouldn't you agree, or would you agree, now that the statements have been made, there might be room to say, like, we might want to rebrand it just so everyone understands what we're saying.
That's happening all along. That is happening. I mean, people are constantly like putting out memes or whatever that say, when we say defund, here's what we mean.
Well, they weren't for a while.
Right, because we had to get our attention.
These are all very good points. I'm glad we're talking about it. I think I have a
It's not even what we were talking about, though.
It's all right. I have a particular thing of, and this came up this week. This is good to talk about. I have this thing where I grew up with such a volatile lady who was supposed to do the mothering thing, that I found that the volatility itself, and this is just something you learn in like anger management or treatment centers or therapy or anywhere you're learning things about people changing, is that when somebody's raging at you, you literally can't hear what they're saying because your neurons are responding. Your whole nervous system is like, I'm under attack, I'm probably going to die. So people have 1 or 2 or 3 responses to I'm under attack, I'm going to die. Fight, flight, freeze, you know? And for me with my mother, I just would like freeze and shut down and then later flight, you know, run away and go be with my friends. And eventually when I realized, oh, she's never going to change no matter how much therapy we do, I left the relationship because that was the healthiest choice. My point being, so I left all that. And then I did a lot of work on me and I had internalized her rage. So I was ragey too. And I was, you know, I had all the things. And so I had to learn like, oh, when I come at people with too much heat, they don't hear me. They're just now my heat is reacting to their heat and we're just heating.
Right.
So I've corrected that like way far to where I just don't believe in fighting fire with fire. I don't believe in like, I haven't seen it work very well that when someone gets mad and you get madder, that anything comes out of that is productive, except you can sometimes have the fight, nothing comes of it, but then you go away, calm down and come back and be calm and centered about it. And then something can come of it. Because sometimes you got to get angry to realize you're angry and then you can navigate it. So there does need to be that blow up point. And I certainly have that in my space where I need to be able to be like, I am frustrated. And then I'll be like, okay, I'm calming down. This is not that big a deal. So I need to off gas my frustration all the time.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's just that when we're talking about such big issues, like when I think back to like my mother and I and how many therapy sessions we did, Cassidy, like, oh my God, so many therapy sessions where before I knew it, both the therapist and I were like, I don't remember what we were talking about because you're yelling and you're so right, Valerie, that what, and then therapist too was like, brr, and our brains would just like stop working.
Would fry. Yeah.
And the best the therapist could do, and there was one time I exploded at her and the therapist was like, let's call it a day. And then the next time we were supposed to like talk about that. Anyway, the point is it just never ever worked.
Yeah.
And then when I started to interact with human beings in my life who had the capacity to do the thing I thought she could get out of therapy. See, what therapy did for me was like, hey, if you do this differently, Katie, a different behavior, if you change you a little bit, adjust a little bit, you're going to hear the person in front of you and things can go better.
Yeah.
So I thought every person can do that. If I say to Valerie Rubin, hey, if you just try to hear me a little, and I try to hear you and we meet in the middle, it's going to be great. She had no interest in doing anything different.
Right.
Okay. That took me a long time to understand. Oh, she doesn't actually care to do that. Okay, got it. So then I had to go to a place in my life where I met people that did. It was like, oh, wait, some humans are like, my bad. Let me calm down. I get that if we're both heated, we're not going to get anywhere because nobody's really hearing anybody. So then I learned, oh, there are people who do that. You can have like fights and relationships with people who like do it better and want to adjust a little to like meet you in the middle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So far? Okay. But bottom line, in every argument I've ever seen is like to get to actual forgiveness where everybody's like actually good with the situation and nobody's compromising to make somebody else happy, but people's needs are actually getting met, both people, that heat must die down.
Sure.
That heated fuck you thing, that heat has to die down because you just can't get anywhere inside the heat. So because that's just my personal life experience with humans interacting with each other, clients, friends, lovers, everybody, I'm like, well, my reaction to the whole thing is always like with what's going on in our culture is to kind of step outside of it a little bit and just go, I'm going to let this die down just a hair before I engage with anything, because I'm not going to just be one of the yelling voices in the midst of a lot of yelling.
Yeah. And
for all the reasons I just said.
yeah. And I think that's true. And what I actually find, I think why I get heated about this particular issue is the framework that there is this thing called, we'll go back to cancel culture, that is a bunch of angry people yelling, when in fact, what I think is mostly being pointed to are open letters and essays and think pieces on why Louis C.K. is a problematic person. It's not someone getting up and going, fuck you, and raging. It's actually just a lot of people talking about something. But then that gets called by maybe other people than you, but that's why just the phrase of cancel culture is...
I don't know if that's where they're looking.
Is a false... It's a straw man.
I think they're looking at Twitter, though. Twitter, people are not doing thoughtful think pieces.
Well, they're linking to thoughtful think.
People are going, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Now I'm going to link to this thing to justify my fuck you.
Well, also, Twitter is also typed, so people aren't actually yelling at each other. I mean, there isn't heat there.
Yeah, but you understand a tone when you read a tweet that's like, fuck Donald Trump. That is like clear how you feel about it.
Sure.
There's no confusion on that point. And when he tweets like a fucktard, all his bullshit he was tweeting, it has aggression and heat in it. And you know that. You're not confused about tone.
Sure.
On Twitter. So I'm just saying that like the way people communicate on a platform like Twitter and even Instagram, there's so much room for people to do a lot of heated yelling back and forth at each other that it's not very think piecey, thoughtful. Here's a well thought out argument against some poor behavior. It's just, I'm mad. No, I'm mad. I'm right. No, I'm right. And then nobody's heard anybody. Which doesn't mean we shouldn't write think pieces. It means we...
Yeah, well, that doesn't speak to my experience because I'm literally not on Twitter. And so everything that I've ever seen referenced or called cancel culture or criticized as being cancel culture has been a bunch of people requesting a change in bad behavior.
Can you give me examples of those?
Yeah, I would say, Louis C.K. is a great example of someone who has definitely been, he gets quoted as being one, not him directly quoted, but like he gets referenced as being, oh, I guess we can't have comedy anymore.
Yeah.
And then a bunch of people write things. And like, I even just read one just recently that was a really thoughtful piece about why, like who loved Louis C.K. and how problematic that is now to love this person. And who actually has not even been canceled because he's sold out a show in Washington.
Well, he did lose. That's true, but he did lose like a huge.
Right.
And I think in this case, he should have.
Yeah.
He lost a huge show. His show and some other projects, they all did get literally canceled. The shows did.
Literally got canceled. And that's consequence, the cancellation, you could then say, well, that's cancel culture, but that's not culture. That's just cancellation that occurred.
The culture piece. Yeah, that's true. I agree. The culture piece, I think, is just how it's so widespread right now that there are consequences, healthy consequences for shitty behavior that we do. We have a culture. There is a culture happening. It's just not.
Right.
Maybe cancel culture is the wrong name.
Well, it's because cancel culture it's the same as when in the 90s, we progressives would say, that's not very PC. That's not very politically correct.
Right.
And we are using it as a descriptor of, hey, I wish you wouldn't be shitty.
Yeah.
Or call, use racist language. But then that word PC got taken and is now has been weaponized.
Sure.
And turned into, oh, I guess I'm not being PC.
Yeah.
Whatever. No, you're just being a dick. So fuck off.
Right.
And that's the same as cancel culture. I think when we first started saying the phrase, it was a concept of like, oh, there's a movement towards people being canceled for shitty behavior. And that's interesting. Let's oh boy, this is happening. But now it's just a phrase that is uttered mostly on like right wing or defensive comedians using that term, just saying, oh, I guess cancel culture. I guess I can't say anything because of cancel culture. And it just becomes a catchphrase.
I understand that point.
So I push back on it even being a word that we use.
I understand. I want to be wrong on this. So I'm going to do a little bit of research and find out, like, are there examples that I can find of people who were actually canceled in some actual way where it wasn't just where they were the thing I'm saying. I want to find if there are any I can find.
What was his name? Howard Dean in the 2000 primaries. He literally made an awkward scream he went, "Rah!"
Okay.
And that ruined him.
Right.
I don't know if that's cancel culture, but that's an example of like, popular mimic reactions to things destroying someone's prospects for no reason whatsoever.
Was that recent? When was that?
No, that was like 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But that's an example that I think of as someone who like lost everything because of something that they didn't deserve to lose everything for.
And then you have examples, that's interesting. You have examples of like Bernie Sanders when with the mittens, he was like, you could have easily, Bernie's one of those figures that somehow doesn't get thrown away entirely, even though he does a lot of shit that is easy to make fun of, or people make all kinds of memes about.
I feel like that was the most loving meme in the history of memes.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
Like you could have easily that could have become mean as fuck, but it didn't.
No.
There's something about him where we all kind of love him, even if you hate him.
Right.
You kind of love him, right?
Yeah.
Does that seem true?
Yeah. Oh, I love him. I think he's great.
No, but I mean, like even like Republicans who hate him, or Democrats who think he's too far left.
Right.
I feel like he's kind of cuddly.
Yeah, and you can't really throw darts at him because they just kind of slide off because he's like, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just keep doing the work.
So maybe the difference between him and someone is because he's not evil. He's just not evil.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And maybe you can just read that on a person, even if you're the most right-wing.
Yeah. Just be like,
evil guy. Not that all right-wing people are evil, but if you happen to be a right-wing person who happens to be evil, maybe you still, I don't know. Maybe it's because they don't take him seriously. But do you see the point I'm getting at? I'm not just abstractly talking about Bernie. The point I'm getting at is simply there are some people who are sort of uncancelable no matter what crazy shit they say. And then there's people who really just can make a lot noise and bye. That's it.
Yeah, and you're done.
To me, that brings us all the way back to human design. Because I put money on the table, no joke. I think I have to like give you a homework assignment at some point if you're willing to take it. Which is we have to get you deeper into it. My point being, I bet cash money. If we looked at that guy's chart, it's in there. It'll be something like the gate of challenges that don't complete, or it'll be called like the gate, really, or it'll be called like the gate of struggle. And then when you read about the gate of struggle, it means people who come into your auric field will judge you harsher for smaller things than they would judge other people. Like that is shit that happens in people's fields.
Right.
And I bet you anything, if we look at like Bernie's next to that guy, you'd see like the gate of the guy who gets away with wacky shit just because he can. Like that's how specific things are. So we think it's like that guy's bad and that guy's good. And what I'm saying is I don't think anything is that simple anymore. I think sometimes people have things going on in their being that you cannot judge. It just is there and it gets interpreted a way. Now, I am not talking about dudes jerking off in front of people or racism. I'm talking about things like the yelling thing where you're like, how did that mysteriously end that guy's career? I bet you money. If we look at his chart, I could tell you why.
Yeah.
It was in there. It was never going to work for him to do that.
It was always going to be like, yeah.
Anyway. Well, this is a good conversation. Thank you for saying all that. That's helpful for me to look at and think about. I may not be able to find any examples of the thing I think I can. I'm curious to learn and see what happens. I'm just getting a message from a student and I'm going to stop reading it. Well, do you want to do your
Okay.
story?
And I will grant that I get this is you saw the hot button that occurred when we started this conversation. I got head up.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I spun up a couple of levels.
Yeah, I mean, see, this is the thing. It's like we have to understand on both sides of every discussion. You may be totally correct. You may be morally high grounded. There may be just no leg to stand on the opposite side of this. And I think the thing I'm saying has some relevance too, which is to say, we're all going to hear each other a lot better the day that we get better at not getting one. Like, look at RBG. That was her superpower.
Yeah.
She didn't get spun up.
Yeah.
Just didn't. She got firm and clear, but not spun up.
And also when I get spun up, I'm less able to form cogent thoughts.
Yeah.
And references and points of, like, oh, this is what I mean. Because I get more like in my rage space. And
even as I say the thing I just said, I go, I bet if we look at your chart, it's going to be like heated on the liberal stuff.
Right.
Like it's all in there.
Right. Advocate for other people. Because it's always about other people.
And it might be perfectly correct for you to function that way. That might be perfectly correct for you.
Well, do we still want to do this other story? I'm still down for it.
Yeah.
It's a whole other thing. Yeah, but it's fine. Great.
Yeah, so totally. Yeah, totally. But like, I want you to really hear the thing I just said. Like, I'm owning that it may not. I haven't looked at your chart on this topic, but it may be I just want people to hear this concept because it's such a new concept in society. People are in order for the individual to be functioning correctly as who they are, it might be perfect for Cassidy, for example, to get spun up about shit. There is no right way. I'm purporting that, like, I prefer if human beings, like, don't get so spun up when we're trying to have a conversation about a difficult thing, because now you're just spun up and we're not really talking. You're not hearing me. You're just winning an argument I'm not fighting you against.
Right.
So then what's the point of that? I just have that point of view. That doesn't do anything for me when we're like, me. I can't engage. But that's me. That's just me. What if that's in my design? And what if your design is to get spun up? What if it's totally appropriate for you?
Yeah.
What if that's how it's supposed to be? I want to look at your chart and find out. Because you're either functioning from the not self when you do that, which is not who you actually are. It's programming. Or you're functioning from your true self. And we don't know.
I think this is going to be very relevant to my story because it has to do with a particular interpersonal relationship that is mysterious as fuck to me.
Oh, cool.
As to why it operates this way.
We may need to look at that person's chart. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, we might not be able to, but we can at least have it in the abstract. And we'll say their name and we'll beep it out. So it'll be fine.
Here we go. Holy crap.
Wow.
I've been in with clients, so I'm kind of already in the zone. So we can tap in easily,
Sweet.
I think. Let me turn this, make sure the volume is off on this shebang over here. Pow, pow, pow. All right, so we'll take a couple deep breaths into the low belly. Yeah, we'll just anchor into the body. We'll just give our body permission to relax fully into the weight of the chair. Or I should say the weight of the body can relax fully into the holding of the chair. And we give up the need to even control what our muscles are doing or how we're doing. We surrender all of that to the chair, acknowledging even the chair is a power greater than ourselves in a certain way as it's holding us up. And we feel the bottoms of our feet connected to the earth. We'll see those little spinning foot chakras at the bottom center of each foot spinning open, like little spinning tornadoes of light that expand at the bottom center of each foot. And as those tornadoes expand wider and wider, eventually the entire surface area of the bottom of each foot becomes an open plane of energy, like an open window, that allows the electromagnetic field of the body to communicate more directly right now, your body, with the earth and its electromagnetic field. I mean, and then coming down through the trunk of the tree of light that is you, we see 500 energetic tree roots of light extending through the open window of the bottom of your left foot, and 500 energetic tree roots of light extending through the open window of the bottom of your right foot, hundreds of miles down into the earth. Left and right, forward and back, down and in. And as those tree roots of light anchor into this moment in time-space of the Earth's body being, we allow a grounding cord to extend from the base of your spine, 1.5 feet wide, shooting down to the center of the Earth. And as it hits the center of the Earth, we see a river of divine light coming up through that grounding cord from the Earth herself, rushing up into the root of you, the base of the spine, flooding forward into each hip socket, into the quads and glutes and hamstrings, knees, calves, shins, ankles, and feet, and flooding down like a sparkly river of white light into those roots we just established moments ago. And as this tripod grounding structure of light anchors our light body to the light body of the planet, we allow the midline of our bodies, from the root to the crown, to just soften one little nugget wider. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. Holy Spirit of God, protect me, please, from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know Cassidy Jamal Brown in the light of the Akashic records. Help me to see Cassidy Jamal Brown through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me, please, to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of Cassidy Jamal Brown have for Cassidy Jamal Brown. And I'll go quiet for just a moment. Okay. All right. So, what's up? Where would you like to start? I'm going to have my eyes closed for a little bit here. Surprise, surprise.
That's all right. So I'll tell a brief tale in order to kind of set up the question, because it's all about the sort of narrative of this particular relationship that I'm so curious about. So I don't know how many years ago, some years ago, we had an opening come up in my household. We have like multiple living spaces. So, we occasionally have people moving in, and an opening came up, and right then I saw someone that I knew from the theater community posting that they needed a place to live. And I knew this person from interacting with them. He was part of a theater company, and he would like run the box office for them. And so I'd always interact with him, and he was just so warm, and I had such a warm, very warm feeling towards him, like energetically right away. So I was like, we talked, interviewed him and everything, and he came and moved in, and it was fine. Like there was no issue whatsoever. He was perfectly lovely. But at some point along the way, I started to feel very almost defensive around him always. Like he was going to be dissatisfied with something, and I was feeling like I had to like make sure, and okay, is he okay as a tenant? So like as a landlord, I was always very like fearful of his disappointment or judgment. And I don't actually know why. Like I've had plenty of people live there and like, oh, a problem comes up, this isn't working, or I'm frustrated by this, and I take care of it, and I might be a little weird about it for a second and then be fine. Like, we're just humans who are living in the world together. But this feeling never went away. I started to just constantly be like awkward and hey around him. Like, I always like, he'd come downstairs.
I know that particular Cassidy awkwardness.
And just like, so, hey, how's it going? And
hey, buddy.
But from this place of like, I hope everything's okay. Like, always in that space, not in the space of just like, hey, how are you? Just like,
I get it. Can you give me his full legal name? Because I'm already getting info about this. And we can obviously bleep it.
Yeah. So please bleep this out, just because, you know, I'm talking about a human.
Yep.
His name is, I don't know his middle name.
Okay, give me just a second here. We like to connect record keepers into records, if we could.
And there's a little more if you want me just to finish the tale.
And I'm just following their direction. Hold on one second. Oh, boy. All right, will you deepen me into records now? Okay. And we're looking to resolve the conflict between the two as well as understand it. The reason they're interrupting and just going into his records is because the energy's already moving of like what this is. So we want to just kind of get to it. I'm just going to do this right now real quick and then we can hear the rest of the story. Okay, so first things first, anything from past lives between the two of you, which it's a big yes. We ask that all be brought to present time, both for and Cassidy Jamal Brown feel into your genital area and your heart and your brainstem. I mean, kind of the whole connection. Any and all past life energy between the two of them, we'd like it to be brought to present time. And completed now, please. Oh, man. And just kind of, if you can, Cass, just be aware of whatever happens in your body right now. There's any sensations, anything. All right, and is there any karma to clear here? No. Have we brought all the past lives to present? Okay. Is this the entirety of the history here and the weirdness? Yes. Is there anything else we need to understand about it, like other than past life info? No. Can you give us info about what the deal was in these past life or lives? Is it one life? It's several. Okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5 times. Okay, excuse me. 5 past lives with him. I'm just going to let this info trickle in. While I'm doing that, this is a good time if you want to tell the rest of the story, Cass.
Yeah, the rest of the story is just, it has to do with, so he, was living in his room upstairs and less and less connected to the household. He was sort of squirreled away in his room. And then he had a person come and stay with him who needed out of a bad situation. And it was during COVID, but he was like, hey, can this person who's, I think, like escaping an abusive situation, come stay with me for a little while? She's COVID tested and blah, 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 whatever. So she came in and kind of bubbled with us, but she never spoke a word to any of us, literally, the entire time. And that little while turned into like 7 months. So she basically had moved in, but never left this room upstairs. She was like a little mole woman. And he came down very rarely too. They just lived in this room upstairs and like ordered food in all the time. And he, talked to us less and less. And so that it was even more awkward. Like, I don't know how to address this weird, like, hey, that's a little strange that this person now basically lives here and is sort of, just inhabiting our space without any real approval of that as a community. And then I had the very clear image. I was like, he's going to lose his job and need to move out and move back in with his mom. I knew that. I knew that was going to happen. And then 2 weeks later, I get a text, and that's how that was all I did, like a text. We live in the same house, but I'd get a text. And it was like, hey, I am moving out. Exactly what happened. Like, I lost my job and I don't want to get in a rent hole. So don't worry, I'm taken care of. It's fine. And I have a U-Haul coming on Monday, like 2 days. Like, he lost his job, made a decision, got a U-Haul and moved and left. Now then we went in and repainted the room and had to clean it out significantly. A lot of weed smoke in the walls, but massive headache. Walk in there, headache immediately. And me and Denise worked it, cleaned it, scrubbed it out. Massive headache. We did a ritual with other people in the house as well. Kind of cleaned out. And as soon as we did that, headache gone. It was so palpable. The energy field problem was so palpable to be like, oh, well, that's a thing that completely happened. There was just no question that that's what was up. But I was still, so why I wanted to bring it up here, though, was it was still up to that weird thing with the woman moving in. And there was no real reason for me to have this tension. I was always like, what the fuck is going on? Why do I feel this way about this person who honestly, and let me be very clear, perfectly lovely, warm, generous, a little bit of isolated energy. That's the worst I could say about him is he, didn't participate in the community of the house very well. But that's it.
What you're describing right there, where it makes no sense, and you're like, what the fuck? That's regularly. Sometimes I was waiting for them to show me gates and channels in the human design chart, because by the way, that's coming through so clear now.
That was the other thing
these
I was
days.
Thinking of from our earlier conversation about that.
Well, I was waiting because sometimes that's in my last session today, not the first two, but the last one, it was tell her about this gate and tell her about this open center and tell her about all this human design shit. And I'm like, all right. Anyway, so that's not what I'm getting, though. Is that what I was going to say is that a lot of times when you have a thing like that where it's this makes no sense. He's a lovely individual. What's happening? And there's not even anything okay, it's usually because there's a past life something. That's the end of that sentence.
Yeah.
If there's just
I
no
assumed
earthly...
that was going to be the answer.
Well, okay, so let me, there's more. So he triggered in you something in this life that is a thing that you get triggered by, which is something along the lines, and you tell me the better words for this, of you're not giving me the feedback that shows me that I am liked or approved of.
Yep.
And so I have to compulsively try to find out if I'm liked and approved of. Does that resonate?
Totally.
Okay.
100%.
So he triggered that in you, and that's a trigger that you have. So in terms of your emotional growth work on this relational dynamic, it would be to be dealing with that.
Right. Oh,
I'm needing his approval. And then to go well, do I need his approval? And how can I get that need met for myself? You know.
Yeah.
In rather than going to the hardware store for milk, he's the hardware store, approval is milk. They don't sell milk there. You just stop looking for milk at that particular hardware store and go get it where they sell it.
Yeah.
Right? So that's piece number one, which is the real-time, your emotional reality piece to look at. The only thing that has value to look at for you on that level is that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, however, and there's this piece about these 5 lifetimes that you guys have known each other. It's really interesting. Whew, this is flooding in now. Okay, so first of all, okay, I'm going to try to, can you give this a little slower? I need to say it in words. Okay, first things first is, sometimes people show up in your reality just for you to complete an energy with them from a past life. It's like you agreed to wrap this one up this time around. That's what he did. He showed up. He triggered the stuff. You got aware of it. You couldn't shake it. You brought it up here. We cleared the past life energy. So you shouldn't really have the same level of reactivity around him going forward.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't. Number 2, some people show up, right, to teach us a life lesson or to mirror to us what we need to see. And that's, we've named that a moment ago. You see it. You get to work with that. Cool. The energy stuff. Okay, this one is definitely about actually the amount of weed he was smoking was bringing in, some entities and some weird stuff. You guys cleared those. Rock on. That's what that was. Now, I'm curious to look at these lives and they're giving me a bunch of info about it. Do you want to hear some of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Super interested.
Okay, now this I have to tune into a little bit more intimately. So, what can you show us, record keepers of and Cassidy, about these past lives? Okay. Huh. Okay, first thing. All right, you guys, okay. You guys have had a few different landlord-tenant dynamics in the past. One is in a world of cobblestones, like cobblestone roads. This is interesting because I was an orphan in this same cobblestone world. Me, Katie Rubin.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. That's so funny. Okay. Okay. And so there, in that case, he left behind a dead body.
Oh.
In the building, and you had to deal with it, and the police came, and they were sort of like implicating you for a minute, and you were like, no, it's about him. He's this guy. He looks like this. They went on a hunt. Is Jack the Ripper a real person?
No one knows.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
the events occurred. Yes, so Jack the Ripper is a real person. There was actual people being killed by somebody that they called Jack the Ripper.
Okay, gotcha. Because I'm wondering, they're talking about that, and I'm going, is that metaphoric? No. Okay, so literally in the time of Jack the Ripper, you were a landlord. I can see exactly what you're wearing. It's really funny. And sort of brown, tan, sort of raggy, shirty, pantsy combo.
Okay.
Why? Okay, I get how he looks. I don't know do I need more on that? No. And so, yeah, so it's just the baggage of that you both have been carrying, his guilt and your implication in his guilt. And we just wiped that away, by the way, in that clearing we did about the past lives. That's why all the yawning started, and that's why I had to interrupt you, is because they're like, we're clearing this. Okay, next one. So that's that one. Next one, it's a seaside. It's seaside. There's a beautiful, it's Greece, southern Greece. No, not Greece. Yeah, Greece. The islands, the islands of Greece. The islands or the mainland? The mainland, southern part of Greece, or the tip of it, where, okay, if you were to take a boat from Greece to the islands, you're there at that part of Greece. I don't know what it is.
Okay. And
the Mediterranean, and it's beautiful, and it's crystal clear, and there's a ship. This is much more recent in history. This is like...
Am I always the landlord?
I don't know yet. I don't think so. No, you're not. I just got that as you asked that. No, you're not. Okay, so now we have is that a cruise ship? Is that like a luxury cruise ship? Is that a yacht? Is it a cruise ship? Yes, but that's like a weird yes. Like a small cruise ship? Like a large cruise ship? Okay, it's a cruise ship, and you're the captain? Okay, and he works for you? He's, what do you call it? He works on the boat, what's that called? Like a guy who works on a boat?
Crew.
That has a name, but I can't get it.
A seaman. He's a seaman.
Huh?
He's a seaman.
He's seaman.
He is a
He's a
seaman.
pile of seaman.
He is on the crew. He is a bosun. He is a
Crew member. Right. That's what I don't know why. Well, that's all I get on that.
All right.
Do we need any more info on that? No. So did one of them screw the other one over in some way? Yes. Did Cassidy screw him over? No. Did he? Okay, now I'm getting it. Okay, so he bailed on his commitments. He left his job, like he was supposed to pull the rope down and make the thing happen, and I don't know, and he didn't do it. And in fact, you guys docked somewhere. Oh, maybe you just docked in Egypt. Not Egypt. I keep saying Egypt. You docked in Greece, and he went off with a woman who was a passenger, and that wasn't cool, and it caused some problems for you. You're so this is making me laugh because
These are such
in a way
stories.
It's such a minimal, huh?
But they're such stories.
Yeah, it's good. It's good,
They're
right?
like the tales.
Yeah. Okay. So there's that. He left, and it was a pain in the ass for you. Was there something else? This feels like not that big a deal. Like, why is this still in their field? Oh, it's because the other guy, carries this as guilt. You know, when we don't resolve something, we carry it until it's resolved, you know? So there you have it. And they're talking about, through your proximity to this work that we're doing and your attuning your frequency to this light all the time, you're starting to get the benefits of spiritual completion points in your life like this. And what might have been, is becoming crystal clear now. You could see things as they're happening now because of the piercing of like the realm of the Akasha. So they're like, there's like from the angelic realm, there's a kind of clapping. They're like, good job. They're bowing to you. Yes, good job. Okay, so that's 2 of the lives. There's 3 more? Mm-hmm.
Just amusing.
Do we need to know about them? No. Can we know about them? Yes. Will be useful to Cassidy in any way? No. Entertaining? Yes. Okay. Well, let's see, just for funsies. All right, what can you show us in 3 minutes real quick? All right, then there's a dungeon type cell, like a jail cell.
Ooh, that's the ultimate landlord-tenant. That's not a great relationship.
Yeah, right? Okay, this time you're in the jail cell. He's the jailer. He's got the keys. And you lose your mind. You lose your mind in the cell. You go crazy. And you know you're going crazy. And he's the only guy. Oh, that's heartbreaking. He's the only guy you could talk to. But he won't talk to you. And he's really cold about it. And every now and again, he does something really abusive. Like he'll throw your food at you instead of give it to you. Or you'll be sleeping and he wakes you up by hitting you or something. Ugh, I don't like this one. And you die there. Right, we're going to move on from there. Can we move on from there? Yeah. All right, 2 more. What else happened? I'm not sure I could do this quickly. There's a lot here, so maybe we'll just leave it there for now, given that we've cleared the energy of it. There's now where it's like there's a field and somebody's a hunter and it's a whole thing.
Well, I mean, those all added up to a thing for sure. Like, him being the only one I could talk to and he wouldn't talk to me. So like bad communication is in there. And yeah, thank you. I found that really fucking interesting. And I mean, the clearing is what needed to happen, but the rest of it is just to look at, is, dig into. I love that. I don't have anything smart to say about it.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I think I'm wondering if, just to wrap up here, how are you feeling about the whole thing now? Like any noticings of awareness in your own body? And it's okay if not, 'cause sometimes it takes a day or two.
Yeah. Well, I already was like, upon his departure and clearing, like a lot of that had resolved. Like I felt very like, oh, good. Like it felt completed in a way. And it was, so a lot of this was more curiosity of the remaining, like, what was that? Why was that? But there's always going to be still remnants. And so like, it was very easy, which it often isn't, for me to go head, heart, brain, genitals, or brainstem, heart, genitals. Like that imagery was really easy to do today, which it sometimes isn't. Like I went right to it. I didn't feel a significant like of any sort, but it was just clean. It was clean. Felt very clean.
Okay,
so
great.
That's my feedback on that. Yeah.
Great. And so so just last piece, and we'll just wrap up here, is just remember that there's always this, but we'll just reiterate. There's always a way to turn your attention toward getting your needs met when they're not getting met by the person in front of you, rather than wasting your energy trying to get them met by the person who won't meet them.
Yeah.
Just that.
The milk at the hardware store thing is possibly one of the most useful concepts. We've said it 1,000 times on this episode. I've said it in conversation with other people multiple times, and people have gone like, oh shit, thank you. Such a simple thing. Sometimes the simplest, most sort of trite little stitch it on a sampler pillow is what you need.
I know. I mean, that comes straight from Al-Anon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Rock and roll. All right. Well, we did it.
Oh
I'm so happy we did it. I've been, just for the listener, I'm sure if you listen, I've been sick in 8 different ways and not well. And like, we tried to tape a thing, and then finally I was ready to tape it, and I could finally do it. And then the freaking alarm went off. I'm ready for this retrograde to be done. That's for fucking sure. October 18th, by the way, for everybody. That's
so we are in one now.
Oh, fuck, are we ever?
Oh, because someone said we weren't, and I was like, God, Wednesday I was in the worst mood that whole day. That went wrong, and everything else, nothing went right that day. That was a bullshit day. And yeah. Anyway, and this particular topic, we have tried to do it, or meaning to do it, like for 5 consecutive episodes, and I didn't
realize that. I didn't know that.
I would bring it up as like hey, here's something we could do, and then we would have another topic to do instead. And then I think we were gonna maybe another time, and then something else came up, and we did that instead. And then this last time was like we're gonna do it this time, and then and then the fire alarm went off. So it's been like, that's a gestalt.
All right. Well, I'm just proud that we managed to cobble an episode together, given all my symptoms and illness, and I'm feeling, knock wood, on the mend.
I'm happy to see your face not looking like you might die.
Like I might die. Let me close your records real fast.
Oh, God, yeah. You don't want to walk around as me.
The bastards, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. Yes, Squeezel, we're wrapping up. She's been so cranky lately. She's like, all we do is lay on this fucking couch. Take me to a goddamn park. I want to thank the Lords of the Records for their point of view, and the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. I ask that you return all of Cassidy Jamal Brown's energy to himself now, please. And what's his name? Energy to him, please. I ask that you return them both to their complete human wholeness now. The Divine Portal and the Akashic Records of Cassidy Jamal Brown are now closed. Amen. The Divine Portal and the Akashic Records of Cassidy Jamal Brown are now closed. Amen. The Divine Portal and the Akashic Records of Cassidy Jamal Brown are now closed. Amen. 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 We did it!
Yeah, we did our work.
Friends. We did our work. We hope you'll do your work. And we
Do
love
it.
you.
Do that work.
Do that
Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to send this right away.
Hello, friends of the podcast. How are you doing? How's it going for you? I hope all is well and shiny and bright and deeply surrendered and aligned and in flow. Just a small request and desire I have for your soul. Hey, listen, if you're interested in getting some really deep activation, spiritual healing, and alignment for yourself, getting clarity on your own spiritual path, and or clearing or healing anything you need cleared or healed from your body, being, soul, or spirit, join me for 3 days of star being and Christ-light healing, October 1, 2, and 3 in upstate Massachusetts, or you can join online. It's a 3-day retreat where we're gonna zap a ton of crap right on out of your system and align you with the light in a really powerful way. October 1, 2, and 3. For details, give me a little email and I will email you back with everything you need. KLRubin, RUBIN, @gmail.com. That's K as in kiss, L as in love, RUBIN, @gmail.com. Additionally, consider joining us for 2 weeks in Egypt, November 15th to the 26th. 2 weeks in Egypt, friends. We're going to go to the temples. We're going to go to the pyramids. We're going to go to the Sphinx. And we're going to be raising the vibrational field of the planet to lift the weight of the recent trauma that we've all been going through for the past year or two, from the planet itself, from the collective, and from our own hearts. So this will be a ton of healing and also like rad travels on the Nile and an integration time for 2 days at a beach at the end in Egypt. Have you always wanted to go to Egypt? Well, you should go. Now's the time. Email me, klrubin @gmail.com. That's K as in kiss, L as in love, RUBIN @gmail.com. Okay, great. All right, let's take a few deep breaths into the low belly. I'm weirdly like fully able to do this now. Why could I not do this at 1:30? I was a mess.
Adrenaline? No, I don't know.
No, the fucking vaccine. Fuck you, vaccine. Also, thank you, vaccine, for helping, but fuck you. God damn it. And
right now it is fucking your body up.
it's rough, man. Okay.
I'm just really glad you're not going to die.
I wasn't going to die anyway.
Well, you're less likely to now. That's all.
All right. Thank you. Me too. I'm grateful for that too. You win. I'm going to let you win everything today.
Oh, thank God. I need a couple of W's.
Couple wins?
It's been a week of L's. Yeah.
Really?
Not really. I'm just saying shit.
Okay. Okay. So we'll close our eyes. Yes. And they're like little tornadoes and they spin wider at the mouth, wider and wider, opener and opener, until the full surface area of the bottom of each foot becomes an open plane of energy, like an open window. We'll just acknowledge that this allows the electromagnetic field of the body to communicate directly with the electromagnetic field of the earth. So the belly relaxes a little bit more and the solar plexus and the heart soften and open and relax. And from here, we do acknowledge the forces of light. I'll go quiet for just a moment. Oh my God. Do you hear that?
Yeah, it's a fire alarm in your building.
Yeah, that's the 5th time in like a week and a half that we've had this.
It'll just turn off after a minute? Or do you have to go outside?
We've all been going outside. Yesterday, a guy in the building went downstairs and just turned it off. And everybody was like, thanks, man, because it was like 5 a.m.
Jesus. What else?
What do I do?
I don't know. Look in the hallway, see if there's smoke.
All right, I'm going to pause the recording.
Okay, I'll do the same.
So we're going to call this episode here.
Oh, yeah. All right. So Katie is surrounded by really loud noises.
I'm sure they can hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad.
I have to go outside. There's a huge fire alarm. We love you guys. Do your work. We'll
All
open
right.
your records
Yeah.
next time.
And, try not to cancel each other.
Okay, no
All right.
canceling. I love
Bye.
you. Bye. Putting this over here. We're not even going to talk about how I can totally prove my point now. We're going to go right into your records.
We'll talk about that later.
What are you asking for? All of the answers? Say what? All of the answers? Yeah, all the answers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your questions so that we have questions to answer in the Akashic Records. Our email address is allanswerspod allanswerspod@gmail.com. That's allanswerspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on Facebook or Twitter, it's @allanswerspod, @allanswerspod. Thank you.
Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It, LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com.